The following is an excerpt from Culture Dads, podcast episode 73, where two dads unpack the mythic elements in The Sopranos, elements that go all the way back to ancient times and give the show foreverness. Enjoy the show.
But later on, as I mentioned, I believe in the second season, Tony goes to Italy. He goes to Italy, right? And he goes and he talks to La Cosa Nostra over there and makes a deal with those people. And during this time, he makes his deal, and there's a lot of weird symbolism in there. So he has this weird kind of back and forth. He wants to bang the lady over there, the boss lady over there, but she's also, they also kind of like fight and argue. He's like, yo, f*** you. She's, no, f*** you. And up your ass. And they fight and all this kind of shit. And there's one scene where they finally make a deal, right? And they go sightseeing, and she takes him to one of the caves of the oracles of Delphi that existed in, or not in Delphi, but one of the oracle caves in Italy that was in Rome. And they go into there, and he goes, oh, so this is like the oracles of Delphi. She's like, yeah, except it was over here, and blah, blah, blah. So they go into the cave, and they start talking, and she's like, what, you don't want to do this? You don't want to bang me? And he goes, oh, yeah, I do, but I don't where I eat. And he kind of does this, there's this little bit of like a rite of passage or an overcoming or a realization development in his character at this point, where he kind of he's done with impulsive, Tony. And he's like, now I got to start really thinking business if I want to go forward. Right. And he pretty much says, he turns away this absolutely beautiful Italian woman where he says, no, I don't. He's like, I do want to bang you, but I'm not going to bang you. Let's talk business. And she's like, this is where, in these caves is where, kings and heroes or whatever would come into this cave in secret and consult with the oracle, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, kind of and then there's he's kind of associates her with an oracle. He's like, so what's my thing going on? And she's like, you're your own worst enemy, is her premonition for him. And he's like, Jesus Christ. He's like, you know what? You remind me of somebody back there too. And at this point, I'm like, you think he's talking about Carmela. He's talking about Dr. Melfi. Dr. Melfi is the main oracle in Sopranos. He goes in secret to her office, which looks like a cave because it's all brown and kind of whatever, and speaks with Dr. Melfi, which rhymes with Delphi, where she kind of gives him premonitions. What do you think?
That actually is, that thing about the cave is really striking, because I actually think that you're onto something, because in Virgil's Aeneid, which is the national epic of Rome, there's a book of the Aeneid where Aeneas, his father has died. Aeneas rescued him from Troy, brings him to the New World, which is Italy, and he dies of old age or something like that. And then Aeneas basically has to get advice from his father about how to proceed or whatever, but he's dead. So he has to go and talk to the Cumaean Sibyl, who is this oracle. It's the equivalent of the oracle at Delphi, but it's in Italy. And in order to go there, in order to actually speak to his father in the underworld, he has to go into this cave, and he has to go into the underworld and pass through all these the line of ancestors going all the way back and speak to his father and then come out. There's a very, very famous line where it says something like, it's easy to go down into the dark, but the real work is getting back out. You know what I mean? I'm getting that totally wrong, but that's the gist of it. So the idea of like going into the cave and speaking to the oracle and then coming back out, having learned something about yourself, having learned something about like your ancestors, having learned something about your destiny and what you need to do, that is coming straight out of Roman history, of Roman myth or whatever. It's so I think that there's definitely something to that. And talking about like going into the cave and speaking to the woman prophetess, that's like, that's exactly, that comes straight out of Roman myth. So that's probably something that is, was intended by the director or by the screenwriter or whatever.
Yeah. So another thing, Carmela, right? Carmela, she is a character you see all the time, the loyal wife, right? Remember when we talked about the movie Mongol?
Yeah.
She is like Genghis Khan's wife. She endures everything. Tony cheats on her. He doesn't really beat her up, but there's times he gets physical with her. He flips out on her. He does like all this shit. There's times that he's about to get arrested. The feds are coming, and this lady. There are times you're like, "Shut up, Carmela, shut," and she like acts like a dick, right? She's like typical, bombastic, fiery Italian lady, right? She's a Jersey wife, like. Remember that? I don't know if you saw this in there. There's a scene where she just like hucks the telephone at him for just saying something, right? He's like, she's like talking or whatever, and he comes out. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You got the orange juice with pulp. I like the orange juice with some pulp." And she's like, just like loses her temper and hucks the phone and hits him with it. He's like, "Oh!" Like there's times you're like, "Jesus Christ, lady," but. When the feds are coming, Carmela is like right beside him, helping him hide the money, hide the guns. Right? There's like some noise outside. The priest is there. She doesn't even care that the priest is there. She goes and pops open one of the fake pillars and pulls out an assault rifle, ready to shoot and fight. This lady is Tony's ride or die. This lady, doesn't matter what happens, Carmela is there. Carmela is she's like the Earth Mother, right? How many like stories, and like especially in Roman mythos, Zeus goes philandering, impregnating, doing all this kind of stuff, humiliates his wife, right? And many, many times, she never moves. She never moves. She's like the Earth Mother, right? To the Sky Father, which I would say Tony is he's a little bit more Odinic than like say like Zeus or Jupiter, right? He does some he goes and he has a little bit more development, a little bit more like he there's some stuff that he does that I don't want to say darker, or he obviously does darker things, but as far as his Odinic qualities, he's a little bit more willing to like try to find new things and to develop himself. And to go through these kinds of rites of passage and go in and like he goes and I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about the Mediterranean stuff, but I definitely see those qualities of the relationship between the Sky Father and the Earth Mother, between those two. Am I reaching there?
Well, I think that you've got Carmela totally pinned down. Actually, I think that that's very what you said is very true. She is the loyal wife, and actually what reminds me the most, who she reminds me of the most in like the ancient world in terms of like myth and archetype and everything, is Penelope, the wife of Odysseus, who in the Odyssey, Odysseus is, he's absent for 10 years, and Penelope is just holding down the fort, right? She's the loyal wife. She's got a son that's not quite come of age and can't quite, seize hold of his patrimony. They don't know if Odysseus is alive or dead. He's off having adventures and like banging goddesses and banging witches and getting stuck on islands and fighting gods and everything like that. Like he's having adventures and doing and like getting in trouble and stuff like that. She's just there holding down the fort, and she's clever too. She like has this ruse where she's got all these like suitors that are trying to bang her, and her son can't really protect her from that, so she has to rely on her like wiles to keep them at bay. And so she develops this ruse where she says, okay, well, I'm going to have to choose one of you as my husband, but I have to finish my wedding shroud. I have to finish stitching together my wedding shroud before I can do that. So let me finish that. And then she just keeps undoing all of the work that she's done during the day. She undoes it at night. So it never actually gets done. And that they're just eternally cock blocked or whatever it is. So she's but she's loyal to a T to Odysseus, and she will not budge. And that seems to be kind of what Carmela is in the Sopranos. Now, obviously, I didn't see the bulk of the series, but from what I saw, she was just she's loyal to Tony. She wants to help him turn around. She wants him to become the man that she knows that he can be. She's a very religious woman. She's concerned about his soul in the afterlife, that he's going to hell and that she will never see him again in the afterlife. There's a whole thing with her and the priest and everything like that. And she's trying really hard to be a good Catholic wife and to be, a moral and upstanding person. She knows that there's some nasty, bad stuff is going on in the house and that she's allowed it and that she has just turned a blind eye and she's concerned for her own salvation, all of this stuff, right? She is actually she was the most sympathetic character of all of the characters. And there's some really, really cool ones. I also found the daughter to be very sympathetic. Obviously the son is just kind of a little or whatever it is, and Tony is sympathetic too. They did a really good job drawing a lot of characters, but Carmela comes I was always really just I just wanted him to treat her nicely, to treat her better. You know what I mean? I was she deserves that. You know what I mean? So they did a really great job with her. I thought she was very, very well drawn. And yeah, there is there's definitely the sort of rock, the earth mother, the loyal wife, the Penelope. She really does embody that archetype very strongly.
Yeah. And, this is another thing with Sopranos. I mentioned this before, how you get endeared to a character and you're okay, they're like this. And then later on they do. You very much get this idea that Carmela wants Tony out of that life. She wants Tony to turn around and to become more Catholic, become a better Catholic and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? You know what else she does? She likes the jewelry. She likes the status. She likes the money. She likes her house. She likes these things. And another thing she likes is that she's Tony Soprano's wife. There's I believe it's in season 2. She's trying to get her neighbor. She's trying to get her daughter to go to a college that's not Berkeley. Right.
Good.
Meadows trying to go to Berkeley. She's like, I want to go to Berkeley. And then Tony's like, what? So you could major in pack and fudge? He's like, no, you're going to go somewhere up here. You're going to go somewhere that's nearby. And they have this big argument about it. And Carmela's behind the scenes trying to stop her from going to Berkeley and to go to the college, Georgetown. Right. Well, her neighbor, the Cusimanos, who are the Wonder Bread, right? The wife's sister is this big shot lawyer, and she's a prestigious Georgetown alumni. And Carmela goes to Jeannie Cusimano, who is the wife next door, and she says, "Hey, your sister, she's in it, right? Write Meadow a letter of recommendation. You need that nowadays. You can't just you can't just get in on your stuff now. You got to know somebody." And she's like, "I need your help," or whatever. And Jeannie Cusimano is completely terrified of Carmela, right? Yeah. She's like, "Oh, okay, I'll look at the time. I gotta get." She's totally terrified of Carmela. And Carmela, you see this part. She's talking to her, trying to be nice, like they're friends and neighbors. And then she realizes this is scared of me. I'm gonna use this, right? And she says she goes, and then the lady talks to her sister, and she's like, "No, I'm not writing a letter for those scumbag gangsters. I'm not doing that." Blah blah. And Carmela goes and shows up and brings her a ricotta pie. And she's like, "Hey, I brought you a ricotta pie. I brought you her high school transcripts. I'd really love you could write this letter." And she's like, "I told you I can't do it." And she's like, "Actually, you're going to write this letter." And she's like, well, I can't. She's like, no, you're gonna write it, and you're gonna enjoy the pie. You're gonna read the transcripts, and you're gonna write the letter. Thank you. And like walks out, and the bitch writes the letter, right? Because it's like she's like at this point, she does all this shit, but when it comes down to it, Carmela does like the fact that her last name is Soprano, and she can say, "You're gonna do what I tell you to do." Or else, because you know who my husband is. And this is fucking based, right? I actually, this is like some of what everybody's favorite parts of what when Carmela becomes like gets hard is what like some of her best parts.
You're listening to an episode of the latest Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette, where two fathers and community leaders discuss modern culture from a timeless perspective. Head on over to culturedads.com for podcasts every week.